Hour 2 Overdrive continues, brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Bryan Hayes, Dave Feschuk of the Toronto Star, Jason Strudwick in here. Mail it in Friday. We've got a big one this hour. We got Mike Johnson coming up. Johnny was in the rink calling the Leaf game last night. Ryan Dinwiddie later in the hour. Argo's Redblacks tomorrow down at BMO Field. We got LeBron in town tonight. Vince Carter's jersey going into the Raptors tomorrow. A big weekend. Juan Soto, maybe he's flying in to meet with Ross Atkins and Mark Shapiro this weekend.
Of course he is.
I would assume Juan will be on a flight up here within the hour.
Get on the flight tracker. Check it out.
He should be in the building probably tomorrow night with Vince. Maybe he's buddies with Vince. You know, why not? Let's make it a full Argos win, Leafs win twice, Raptors win tonight. Why not? Right? The Raptors with a home and home.
Struddy, as a former athlete, Struddy, how much do you admire the cold-blooded capitalism that is Juan Soto?
You know what? Yeah. It's clear. It seems like he's looking for the biggest paycheck, right? And I don't know. I think that if it was me, at that level, I know I'm going to be set for generations to come. So I'm looking for the best situation where I can win. Because after you have money, really, what is there? What is there to do? You just want to win. Like you heard so Shohei talked a little bit after, like he was so happy his first year he won. It's exciting. So after you have money, what do you want? Like, don't you want to win?
Well, that's the thing. Like Ohtani made the right choice. Clearly, he got top dollar. I think the Jays may have been willing to offer the same deal, but he picked the right call. He gets to live in LA and be a Dodger, and the Dodgers are the best team, and he's probably going to win multiple World Series. And you're right. You would think Juan Soto. Let's say you're within $10 million in the bold number. The Yankees will give you $650 million, and the Pirates will give you $660 million. You're telling me you're going to Pittsburgh?
Yeah.
And I'm just using them as the example. Anybody. You can use the Jays as the example, whatever it is. Why would you not go to the team that you know is pretty committed to winning all the time?
Right.
You know, like the Yankees generally are in the mix. They're always above 500.
But there are those guys whose agents can convince them that they got to get the trophy contract.
And he's the number one guy. He's got Scott Boras.
He's the number one guy, the number one agent, and they're going to go for the number one contract of all time, and they want to stagger people.
Do you think he wants $700 million in $1? Like, do you think he wants one more dollar than Ohtani?
And none of it deferred like Ohtani.
Right. The deferment won't be happening. But do you think they're petty enough to be like, I want $1 more than Ohtani. And he doesn't deserve $1 more than Ohtani. Like, he's younger than Ohtani, but the way Ohtani can play, if he pitches, also the marketing component of Shohei Ohtani.
Right, that's what turned on the Blue Jays, is that you could be he can turn you into a global marketing company when he plays for you, right? You can put his face on everything and expand all over Asia, and people, you don't need words. You just put his face on there.
Big part of it, I think. Right. It wasn't about baseball first. I think it was about business first.
Yeah.
But listen, Soto's going to get paid. He deserves to be paid. You know, in baseball terms, in relative terms, he's an unbelievable player. 26 years old. He's reaching free agency. It's pretty incredible.
He's fun to watch.
He's a blast to watch. Like the way the dramatics at the plate, the way he'll watch a pitch outside and stare at the pitcher. Like
he does the shuffle.
He does the shuffle. He's a great player, man. He's an awesome player, and he deserves to be paid. He will be paid. But yeah, you would think winning at some point would be like, I'll take the $700 million and this team that's competitive.
But all the teams that are going to bid, Steve Cohen's going to bid over with the Mets. The Yankees are going to have to put an effort in, even if
some people believe the Dodgers are going to kick tires on them.
Well,
maybe they will.
The Ohtani money's deferred, so.
And furthermore, how much do you make when you win a World Series?
Right.
Like, how many tens of millions of dollars did the LA Dodgers just make from winning the World Series?
Oh, it's stupid money.
It's got to be. It's a fortune you make on tickets, on paraphernalia, on merchandising, on boosting the tickets for next year, like year over year over year. You got to get this. You got to get that.
Ad rates, everything.
Like they would have paid for at least a couple years of his contract with this run this year.
You'd have to.
I would think, based on profit alone. So I guess it's possible they kick tires. But what would be crazy if the Angels said, "We'll take Juan Soto, we'll take him." We want him. Ohtani, you can leave, but Soto, we'll pay you top dollar. That would be quite the
tournament. That would be sad. We don't want Juan Soto playing for an irrelevant franchise.
That would be sad.
We already saw Trout and Ohtani go through it.
Yes, that
makes
would be
no
sad.
sense. Makes no sense for a star player to go there as a free agent.
No.
You want to win. The money's the same. Win.
You would think so, Strud.
Freddie Freeman loved it. Look how happy that guy was the other day. He's already won one.
Well, he was bent out of shape when he had to leave Atlanta. Remember that?
That was awkward.
Remember Kershaw came out publicly his first year and was like, this guy's got to snap out of it. Like, are you with us or not? Like, that was a wild statement from Kershaw.
It was.
Where he was like, this guy's moping around the clubhouse. Like, either go back to Atlanta or be a Dodger. And now Freeman's a Dodger, and he'll retire probably known more as a Dodger than a Brave.
Yeah.
Probably.
Well, when you see
winning the World Series and what he just did in this World Series.
Did you see that laundry list of injuries he played through? Like, it wasn't just the ankle that we all knew about.
Yeah.
The cartilage in the ribs that he was getting, I would assume some really significant needles into every game.
And he wasn't DHing because Ohtani had to DH.
Yeah, and he was running his ass off, and he had a broken finger.
That's what's amazing. He had to go out there and play first base.
Yeah.
Because Ohtani's like, I'm not leaving here.
No.
I DH. That's how I roll.
Well, and then once he had the shoulder injury, there was no way he was going to play out.
But still. Freeman maybe could have looked at him and said, can you pick up a glove and go play first base? Or is that just not possible?
Struddy, what kind of painkillers do you think you got to take to play through a rib injury as a professional hitter?
I couldn't imagine the torque on that. Like, there's got to be so much. And then that swing on the Grand Slam, it was perfection. It absolutely
so butter.
Perfect swing.
So butter. Here's Mike Johnson, our TSN hockey analyst, joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline. What's happening, Johnny?
What's going on, boys? I'm having flashbacks because I tried very poorly to play through a torn rib cartilage one year in my NHL career, and I was playing for Tampa, and coach I'm like, I can't move, I can't breathe, I barely hit anyone when I was healthy, let alone now. and they're just like, don't worry about it, we understand, just try to play and play in the power play. And my game got I wasn't hitting grand slams in the World Series. Let me tell you that. I went like 10 games and got 1 point. I'm like, I got to stop. It's no good. So all respect to that, because that would be, you can take needles, you can take painkillers, but every time you move, it's kind of like sticking a knife in your ribs. Like, that's hard to get over. And full credit to Freddie Freeman for doing it.
And furthermore, what if a guy decides to hit you with a 98-mile-an-hour fastball in the ribs?
Oh,
like, that's another thing, man. You're stepping up to the plate. Some guy gets out there that's losing control and hits you with a 97-mile-an-hour heater. Like, painful that would be.
That would be terrible. But I got to tell you, the knowledge, like, part of the rib injury is it's coming. Like, that's part of what makes it challenging. Like, every move, like, it's going to hurt, it's going to hurt, it's going to hurt, and it does hurt. That that would be tough. Almost getting plunked in the side. At least it's a reactionary thing. You're not thinking about it, even though that would buckle you as well.
Yeah, no kidding, man. Well, you were calling that Leaf game last night, and the Nylander stuff is interesting. Like, we've been talking about Willie today. We talked about him yesterday. We've been talking about him all year. I think that line has looked really good through 2 games, and they looked good last night. And, Willie played a little over 17 minutes, but had 2 goals. He was hopping, had a turnover in the neutral zone that Berube wasn't ecstatic about. But watching his game up close and personal, would you say he sent a message to Berube last night? Like, what do you make of Willie's game and how maybe the head coach would have perceived it?
Yeah, so I mean, this is how good William Nylander is in a game where his line was really good. He scored 2 goals. I'm going to come on and say, yeah, he was fine. Like, he wasn't exceptional because, he was good. He scored a couple nice goals when his line mates made a couple nice plays, but it wasn't a dominant William Nylander sort of performance where he had the puck on his stick all game and was dancing with it and making plays all over the place. That line's been good together. And so I don't know, Hayes, if the fact that William Nylander says, I want to play more, should be perceived as big news. Struddy, you wanted to play more. Everybody wants to play more. Everyone thinks they could use a couple of 3 extra minutes. Like, the bigger news would be if he thinks, no, I'm good. I'm like the quarterback from the Colts. Like, I don't need to play so much. Like, that would be big news. Him asking for more ice time. I guess the fact that he did it publicly, that's what makes it noteworthy. But every player sort of wants a couple extra minutes. And as far as Berube, I think he probably watched the game like I did. He played well. The line was efficient. They scored a couple goals. It's a 3-0 game. Where we need to be better is in a 3-0 game, not to turn the puck over, gap out our defensemen, and put a 3-on-2 when a game we have full control of. That's the stuff we don't need. And that's what he got into William Nylander's ear about. So I have no problem with that. I think that's all part of the message delivery. We saw him chew out Austin Matthews this past week. Like, it happens, and he's going to be consistent whether you're the best player in the world or you're the 23rd man on the roster. If you don't do what he wants, and it's sort of a mental, conscious decision mistake, you're going to hear about it. And I think that's probably a good thing for the Leafs and for the players that are hearing it.
Well, Johnny, when you're down there between the benches, I mean, I'm sure you pick up on, certain tensions between the head coach and certain players at certain times. Mm-hmm. I mean, can you compare and contrast in your early observations of Berube as Leafs head coach, compare and contrast the tone between him and Sheldon Keefe?
So Craig Berube is probably a little bit more even-keeled. Like, he doesn't react to as many things. We saw Sheldon get hot-headed about the officials, and Sheldon would get hot-headed about stuff that would happen, and then dial it back under control. But there's more fluctuations where Berube is, he doesn't give you much. He's pretty stoic back there, pretty quiet back there until he sees something he wants. I think over the course of time, we all kind of figured some players where Sheldon Keefe might have been slightly more understanding if they were to make a mistake versus others that he seemed to have less tolerance. Right now, it doesn't feel like Craig Berube's got much of a hierarchy when it comes to favorites. Like, anybody, we've seen it, best players, they make a mistake, they hear it the same way the fourth line hears it when they make a mistake. In fact, they might hear it more than the fourth line because the expectation is you're those players. Not only do you have the skill to make better plays, but you probably have the brain to understand the need to make better plays. And if you don't, then you're going to hear about it. So in that sense, it feels a bit different. There's not quite as much noise coming from behind the bench. Not that Sheldon was out of control, but he's a little bit louder. Craig Berube is not. And I think he is a bit more egalitarian across the board with who he corrects and how he does it.
Max Pacioretty, came in on the PTO, and it feels like he's trying to become a different player or be a different player than he was historically by being more physical and a little bit more heavy. Is that what you're seeing out there? And is he capable of doing that for an entire season and playoff run?
Well, he's certainly talking it, isn't he, Struddy? Like, Struddy, you know him very well. You probably played against him. Like, Max Pacioretty, you recognize he's big. But I wouldn't.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say he's like overly physical. Like, he's large, so he's hard to play against because he's strong on the puck. But I wouldn't think of him as being. He talked about wanting to be more violent when he's in and around the puck. I'm like, that's not a term I would ever associate with Max Pacioretty in the way that he plays. He's been an awesome NHLer, but violence is not something I think of when I think of Patches playing for Montreal or for Vegas or for whoever. But to his credit, I think he appreciates. He's a different player now than he was when he was younger. And for him to be successful on Toronto, he probably has to play a little bit differently. And he's got the frame to do so. Now, lasting power, can he do it for 70 games? Can he do it through the playoffs? Can he do it for 17 minutes a night? That remains to be seen. He is older. He has missed a whole bunch of time. But I do appreciate a guy who is self-aware enough to recognize the way I've always done it probably won't work for me here. So I'm going to work and talk and be vocal to figure out a different way to play that can help the team that I can still be okay with. And the other part about it, Struddy, I think he is sort of finding a communal bond with John Tavares. And whether, a couple of the older players, a couple of guys that are still trying to be as good as they once were, a couple of guys who have to now pay super close attention to their bodies and their training. Like, I just think there's a little chemistry developing there off the ice, and perhaps it's going to carry over on the ice. But through 2 games, you cannot discount how good that line has been. But I also remember through 2 games, McMahon, Domi, and Nylander was the toast of the town, and it didn't last. So we'll have to wait and see. Yeah,
the only line that stayed intact is that top line. Nyes, Matthews, and Marner. And based on the way they played last night, they're all collectively chipping in. Nyes got his 6th of the season. Matthews with that really, really cool empty net goal gets to 5. Yeah. Really crafty, really cool. I don't see any reason to believe that line's going to break up anytime soon. No, it's not going anywhere. I'm with you. I think that
is going to stay, and if you're going to keep the Tavares line together. So now you're down to the third and fourth lines, if that's what we're going to call them. Max Domi feels like he's gotten lost a little bit in the shuffle, which can happen, right? Like, you knew that depending on how the rotation worked out, Max would be playing with one of the scoring guys, and if he didn't, his game is not designed probably to check per se. He can play with energy and physicality for sure, but not necessarily to check, and that line will be a work in progress. Like, Nick Robertson took line rushes in warm-up on the fourth line, and it was like 4 minutes in the game, it felt like he was playing on the third line, and Holmberg was down on the fourth line. So, they're trying to find the right combinations for all these different things, and I think that third line, which we've known, the third line center position, or at least just the third center, whoever that's going to be, has always been a question mark for Toronto, and they're still working through it.
Johnny, nobody in Toronto is ever sad to see bad things happening to the arch nemesis out in Boston. So now that they're at the bottom of the Atlantic Division, albeit early in the season, there's a little bit of there's a few snickers in Leafland for sure. But what do you make of, they're getting drilled 8-2 last night. It's they've lost 5 of 6. They're not a very good defensive team. Is that just, the early season bugs, or do you see that being a long-term problem here?
So I try to look at Boston and evaluate them through both lenses, right? Like, so the eye test. The vibes feel off there. They feel uncertain. They feel disconnected, loose. The strength of Boston was always in the team and everyone sort of chipping in. That's not the case. The guys who were having a good year were the fourth line, who it was so good they had to break them up to try to sprinkle the fourth liners to get the other 3 lines going. But the Zackas and the Coyles and the Geekies and the Fredericks, the guys who were really good last year, have all gotten off to miserable starts. Like, you'd always say about Boston, right? The whole has always been greater than some of its parts. And now it doesn't feel that way. Now they feel like just a regular NHL team. Like, nothing special about the way they play, the way they operate, the culture, air quotes, that they have around that team. That is so very different than in years past. And then I look at the numbers, and their numbers are no good. Flat out. Their numbers, not just the goals for, but the expected goals for is way down. The expected goal percentage, way down, below 50. These are numbers we have not seen really since Patrice Bergeron has played for the Boston Bruins. So, it's not a rut. It's not a cold start. There are legitimate reasons to be concerned for the Bruins right now. And it feels like, guys, they play tomorrow and Sunday. If they don't win one of those 2 games, and I'm never advocating for someone to lose their job. I'm just observing that somebody might lose their job. Like, it feels like it's that sort of tenuous. If they go 0 for the weekend, that changes might be made.
Yeah. MJ, I watched a bit of the Canucks and the Devils the other night. Devils are on their western swing out Calgary and Edmonton. Now, I know the goaltending, but they look bigger. They look bigger all over the ice. They always had the skill, but to me, they look bigger. Are you seeing the same thing? And what do you like about this team, their additions? And we can maybe skip over the goalie. I think we know what Markstrom could do.
Yeah, I mean, their goalie is obviously important, but Dougie Hamilton, who's not a perfect player, but he's still a good player. He was hurt almost the entire year last year, right?
Sure.
He's a big boy, and he logs a lot of minutes. Brett Pesce is a stout defender who plays kind of a defensive, bothersome game. Not super physical, but still efficiently physical to be defensive. Luke, they bring Brendan Dillon, another guy that is big, kind of mean, kind of robust. These are the kind of players they have to go along with the guys up front. And we know Heischer is small but plays big, and Hughes and Brad are a bit smaller. But Timo Meier there now, he's kind of settled in. And Stefan Nason, they brought in as well. And so they have these players that play a little bit bigger, everyone a bit healthier, new coach, new system. They're a good team. So bigger is something that Tom Fitzgerald was keen on trying to get. You talk to Fitzy, he'd tell you all the time, like, I want to be bigger. He realized that he wants to be bigger, and he went out of his way to address some of those needs over the summer. And they're a good team. They're going to be a top 2 team, I think, in the Metro. Them and the Rangers will be the top 2 teams, although Washington's gotten off to a good start. But they're good. As long as they stay healthy, they're going to be good.
Yeah. Carolina, too, man. Every single year they do it.
I know. Do not sleep on Carolina. Underlying numbers, so good. Again. And the thing is, Hayes, I've been on them for like 4 years in the playoffs, and I'm off now. I'm off the wagon. I'm like, I can't buy it anymore.
I agree.
I feel burnt every time because they're good and they're close, but they're never quite good enough. And they always have the same sort of shortcomings. So I'm like, that's it. I'm off the bandwagon this year, and of course, they'll probably go super deep.
Yeah, no, I'm with you, though. I mean, they consistently do it all the time. You get to the playoffs, and they just either run out of steam or the opponent is just deeper or more talented or has a better goalie or whatever it is. But, yeah, Carolina looked good last night, and Edmonton did too. And how would you handicap the chances Leon Draisaitl wins a Hart Trophy this year? Where are you at with Leon now that the opportunity's there for him to be the number one guy for maybe 8, 10, maybe 12 games?
Yeah, I mean, I guess he would be sort of equal footing, maybe slightly below the other usual suspects, because at some point...
Let me phrase it this way. If you had to put money on McDavid winning the Hart or Draisaitl winning the Hart, who would you put money on?
Well, right now, Draisaitl, because he's going to play the full 82, presumably, and McDavid might play 69, 68, 70, whatever. Draisaitl will probably score more goals, which does matter. The narrative that he carried the team is available if he's able to carry the team. So that I agree with. Yeah, it's probably more likely that Leon gets it, and he would be in the group with Makar and McKinnon and Kucherov and the other top players in the league. He's won a Hart before, so it wouldn't be a big stretch to see him do this. And I can't get into the mind of what that kind of player would think, but on some level, the competitor and the talent would allow you to almost relish. You're not happy McDavid's not around, but you almost don't mind the challenge that he's not around to see what you can do without him, because you're good enough to do a lot without him. And I wonder if maybe Draisaitl just embraces that opportunity.
What about Hyman, MJ? With he finally got a goal last night. He gets so much out of playing alongside McDavid, obviously, but he's coming off 50 plus. Hadn't scored until last night. But without McDavid, what's the reasonable expectation for Zack Hyman in your mind?
30, 70 point pace. That's kind of what he's been. The power play will be a big part of that, because whether the power play clicks to the same degree with or without McDavid, now that hasn't been good to start the season. But generally speaking, if the power play is not quite as good, then his numbers will take a hit. But it's not like he can't play with other players. He might not get 54 goals or whatever he had last year. He might get 36. But he's still very good. And even though he scored just his first goal yesterday, you looked at his underlying numbers. I know you guys love that, but they're very strong. Like his expected goals, his chances generated, all really still near the top of the league. Just a little snake bitten around the net, and maybe the one last night opens him up and he gets a few more.
All right, Johnny, we'll leave it there. It's going to be a fun weekend, man. A lot of action here in town. Leafs are playing twice. Enjoy it. We'll do it again early next week.
Are we more excited for Bronny James
or
LeBron?
Bronny, man. Their name, it's like Taylor Swift coming to town. They're naming streets after him downtown. Bronny's
I want to see him get 6 minutes, go 1 for 3, and get a standing ovation.
Yes.
I love it.
I need to see that. Drake, do you think Drake will be there tonight? Will he be right front and center? I don't know.
That's a tanking season. I haven't seen much of Drake. What do you know?
Drake's not as associated anymore with the Raptors now. Where's that global ambassador when you really need him?
Exactly.
We really need that ambassadorship.
Now we need the PR. Exactly.
Yeah, we can really use you, man. We'll see. Enjoy it tonight, Johnny. We'll do it again soon.
All right, boys. Have a good weekend.
Yeah, Mike Johnson joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline. Yeah, the global ambassador showed up just when they were moving upward. And I think, that's a job for life, though. You're supposed to be committed to that. And him and LeBron are close. And listen, when the Lakers are here, you got to take advantage. Like, we're joking, but watching LeBron, if you're lucky enough to see him live, I've seen him live a number of times. I know you have a bunch, Dave. It is something special. Like, he's truly one of the great athletes ever. And to be able to say, I saw him live, and I don't know how many more we're going to get. This could be it. This could be the last time he plays at Scotiabank Arena.
It's always possible.
Yeah.
I mean, he may, I think he's the kind of guy, Struddy, that'll want like the farewell tour. He'll announce his retirement before he retires, and then go around the league once and get gifts from every team and who knows what else. But, but you never know. I mean, maybe he just
remember last year he said, "I'm not sure I want to be that guy,"
right?
And everyone was immediately saying, "Dude, that is a bull-faced lie. There's no way."
He's Mr. I'm not comfortable accepting praise, right?
Yes.
Right, LeBron.
Yeah.
Right. You tattooed the chosen one to yourself, but you don't like praise.
No, he doesn't like it. Very uncomfortable.
Let's say this, guys, though. I feel bad for Bronny. Let's say LeBron, this is his last year. Is Bronny in the NBA next year?
It's not a guarantee. No, it's not. It's a package deal.
He does have a multi-year guarantee at $7.9 million.
Yeah. I suppose he does, but he can go to the G League.
Yeah. But I guess my point is he's no different than so many other players. Like I guess he is playing NBA, but I think he's on a hard spot because if his last name was James and his dad was LeBron, he wouldn't be in the NBA.
No.
Right? He's barely hanging on to the league, and I don't know. Did you get there yourself? And I don't want to put this young kid in, and kind of talk trash, but it just doesn't feel right. As a son, how would you feel knowing your dad is the gatekeeper to your job in the NBA? It just doesn't feel right.
Yeah, like especially playing in the NBA. Like no one would bat an eye if he was working for the Lakers.
Yeah.
That
happens all the time.
Happens all the time. And if anyone's going to have the power to pick up a phone and say, "Hey, this needs to happen," it's LeBron.
Yeah.
And the Buss family would be like, "Fine. What is he? Assistant to the GM? Done."
Right.
Like whatever. But
the Buss family's only running the team because their dad owned the team.
Right. Exactly. And they, ownership and executive levels, that's totally different. But like the playing of sports is a meritocracy.
It should be.
It's supposed to be.
Not right now.
You actually. That's the beauty of it. That you earned it because of who you are on the field of play. But that's not what's happening here.
But I liked it. Struddy, I'm with you. Like I'm pulling for this kid. Like I don't like what LeBron has done to him. I don't think he's put him in a good spot.
No,
this is about LeBron more than it's about Bronny. But I liked how the fans in Cleveland. I got to give them some credit. Like they treated him as one of their own. They treated Bronny as one of their own, and to cheer him on like that. And they know who he is. Everybody knows who he is. He's not an NBA player. He's a G League player, maybe. He couldn't even really show out at the summer league, let alone the real league.
Right.
It's like he won a prize and he gets to tour with the Lakers till he goes to the G League. Like I don't know. I just wouldn't feel right as a son. I'd be like, this isn't right, Dad. Like I shouldn't be in the league. I haven't earned this, right? I don't know. That's
difficult, man.
Yeah. I don't know. I wouldn't put my son in that position. I'd be like, draft him somewhere else. Someone else draft him.
Well, nobody would have.
Yeah, that's the reality.
That's a fair point. That's a fair point, right? I guess case closed.
I guess the only argument is if it energizes LeBron, if it makes LeBron happy. Somebody pointed out the other day, like he hasn't been doing his usual passive aggressive shots at the franchise for not getting more players. Mm-hmm. He seems like a happy guy, and that's
okay. And they're actually playing pretty well, though.
Fair point. All right.
Yeah. And listen, that may be a strategic truth.
Yeah.
That bring in Bronny, and you're going to get a more youthful LeBron and more committed LeBron, and you're going to get a guy in LeBron who maybe feels like he's indebted to you to an extent. I'm not sure.
Probably not too much, but a little bit maybe a
right. But there's some validity to that.
Yeah.
And if he plays well, and the Lakers win and they make the playoffs, who cares who the 12th man was? Yeah. Ultimately, if it's Bronny or someone else,
except the 13th man that didn't get to play,
13th guy, that guy's gonna have an issue. That guy's gonna have a problem. But that's the way the world works, man. Yeah. The guy at the top is more important than the 13th guy. And if the number one guy is saying, this is who I want as the 12th guy, guess who the 12th guy is going to be?
Yeah.
It's going to be Bronny James. Lakers and the Kings in town tomorrow. So more on that as we move forward. Semifinal Saturday in the CFL tomorrow. Argo's at home against Ottawa. Ryan Dinwiddie still to come later in the hour. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2. All right, Ryan Dinwiddie a little bit later in the hour. Mail-in and Fridays brought to you by Boston Pizza, Canada's favorite sports bar. From tip-offs to tie bites and puck drops to pizza. BP's elite lineup of apps, wings, and ice-cold beers always dialed in for game time. Hustle in your local BP tonight. We've been talking about the Bruins and how much they've been struggling lately. And yet, they don't struggle when they play the Leafs. They beat the Leafs in the regular season every single time.
So true.
They literally did that a week ago. But they're here next Tuesday. And Al's brother has been hiding somewhere in the city of Toronto this week. Yes, he has. And if you know where he's been, call us right now at 416-870-1050. 416-870-1050. The first caller through with the correct location wins a pair of tickets to see the Leafs play the Bruins again November 5th. 416-870-1050. Doogie, open up those lines. Doogie's already on the phone. Doogie's a popular guy when you're giving Leaf tickets away.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Doogie's a man of mystery around here, man. People love Doogie. They love JP. They love Joe from the Bridge. The whole crew.
It's a great crew.
It's a great crew. We're very, very lucky. And everyone wants to talk to the guys. and they're usually willing to talk. They're usually willing to talk about whatever you want to talk about. That's a beautiful thing.
One thing with Doogie, you roll in, you always can detect Doogie before you see Doogie because he's a Cologne aficionado.
I've never met anyone like him.
No.
Like my original thought was, wow, it's a good smelling guy. Like whatever, okay, you got the cologne going, and then O brought this to our attention. And Struddy, you may be able to smell this in Edmonton. O brought it up a few weeks ago. He's like, we have to put a stop to the cologne by Doogie. Well, because it's so over the top. It's an excessive spray routine for Doogie, and yet he is very committed. Like that's like his superpower.
Yeah,
is smelling like $1 million.
Was his dad? Is his dad the same way? Does his dad, overscent himself?
I don't know, Doogie. Is Doogie on the phone right now? I think Doogie's spraying himself with cologne right now. Doogie, put the cologne bottle down and join us here. And you tell us, did you learn this from your dad, your grandfather? Like, who made you such a committed follower of the cologne lifestyle?
It was all myself, to be honest with you.
Yeah?
I was always told, whenever you walk out of the house, you got to smell good.
Well, hygiene's
important. So it did
important.
come from family, but
yeah, sure.
I'm the one who purchased it all, and I love it.
So you tell me why you're so committed to the cologne lifestyle. Like, how has it benefited you so far in your life?
It really hasn't benefited me. It's more just you walk by, people compliment, people like it.
Right.
Can't complain.
That dude.
My question is, we have a society that's very sensitive. There are like scent-free zones.
Yes. Yeah. That's
there
right.
There are, some gyms you can't bring in scented deodorant or scented hairspray. JP is in a very small booth with a man who loves scented products, mixes and matches them. JP, how's that feel?
It's definitely noticeable at times. I'll put it that way.
That's very diplomatic.
There's been a few times where I'm like, oh, okay, Josh isn't around yet, and then you walk out the control room and go, no, Josh is here.
Yeah,
he's just hiding somewhere.
Oh, Doogie could be painted like the wall. You wouldn't even know, but you'd know he's here.
You'd smell him.
Yeah, because you're like, oh, Doogie's around somewhere. It's amazing, Struddy. You got to see it. You got to smell it. You got to smell it. Doogie is he's committed to the cologne lifestyle, and I support it. Go for it. Do your thing.
He's got some real investments in this cologne. This stuff's not cheap.
I know. That's the crazy thing. Like cologne, what's cologne going for these days? Inflation.
He's got a few $100 tied up in this stuff.
What's your cologne budget? Like what kind of money are we talking about here?
Usually highest is $250.
$250 a bottle.
$250 per bottle.
That's crazy.
Doogie, you could have invested that.
And that's just 100 mils.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's wild stuff, man.
Too
like
much.
Doogie could be going to Taylor Swift in a couple weeks.
Too much.
Instead, he's got to smell like $1 million.
I was going to say, you could. Yeah.
That's shameful. That's disappointing, Doogie. I have to question your.
Put that in an index fund. You might have some money eventually.
That's right. Look at us, Dave Ramsey over here. Like, just keep rolling it over and roll it over. You could be worth $5 million instead of that cologne in 30 years. Come on, Doogie. All right, Ryan Dinwiddie coming up. Argo's Redblacks down at BMO Field tomorrow. It's going to be a great crowd. Beautiful football weather tomorrow. It's supposed to be sunny, relatively warm. We're into November now, and this is a big game. Battle of Ontario going down tomorrow. Redblacks in town playing the Argos. We'll catch up with the head coach of the Argos, and we'll do that next. Well, the offseason has begun out in Edmonton, Struddy. Your Elks, just a horrible season. Horrible season, but they went out on a strong note with the punt through the end zone to win the game. I love it. Beating the Argos, but the Argos are off to the playoffs again, and they're back at BMO Field tomorrow playing Ottawa, and roles are a bit reversed here. This time last year was Montreal. It's like, all right, we got to get through a semifinal here. We got to try to get to an Eastern final, and now the Alouettes are waiting to see who they're going to play, and we'll find out tomorrow night because kickoff's at 3 p.m. down at BMO Field, and of course you can watch it on TSN. You can hear it here. It's going to be a great game. The Argos against the Redblacks, and to tee it up, we're joined now by the head coach of the Argonauts. Here's Ryan Dinwiddie. How you doing, Ryan?
Doing great, man. How you guys doing?
We're doing well. How you feeling about your squad now that we got through the regular season? You put that behind you. Preparing through the week. You know who you're going to play tomorrow in Ottawa. How you feeling about kind of the mindset of your team going into the game tomorrow?
Yeah, I feel good. I feel like we had a good week of practice. Walkthroughs were clean today. The effort was there. The attention to detail was there. I thought the guys played fast. But just great energy, great focus, a lot of excitement. Long season, 18 games to get here. You always want to give yourself a chance, and we're looking forward to it.
For the carryovers from last year, do you address the elephant in the room in terms of what happened in the East Final and how it got away from you guys? And if so, like what do you hope to learn from last year that you can apply to this playoff run this year.
Yeah, no doubt. I think, have the conversation with Chad and, Mike Miller's quarterback coach. He obviously spends a lot more time on him than I do. And, he doesn't have to be a superhero, right? Just go out there and manage the game, let the game come to us. You play your cards right. Eventually they're going to lay their hand out, and that's when we'll take our shots. You can't manufacture them. Take our easy completions, run the ball. Let's play simple football, see how this is going to play out. But, I think for the most part, I don't try to dwell on that last year stuff too much. But it's a new team, and the veterans that are a part of our club from last year, they're veterans. They understand what we did last year, and it's moving forward to this year. And I don't want to go on past experiences and bring up some bad memories. We've learned from it.
Coach, how much to go back and review the game tape from the 2 games you had this year against them?
Yeah, quite a bit. More so than anything on defense. Offensively. I think Tommy does a good job, especially in the first half. He tries to, manipulate your rules and find ways to, get guys wide open. And he does a good job with it. So we looked at that quite a bit. I think, defensively what they do is, pretty much the same. They've brought in some different zero pressures where they're bringing, 7, we're blocking 6 compared to, other games in the breakdown we watch other teams. So we looked at that. I think we got a good plan for them. And, they're a good defense that starts with the front, but I think our offensive line's gelling right now.
Coach, the big picture this year in the CFL, one of the big topics has been the command center, the video replay stuff that at times has not really been up to snuff. I know there's been a lot of tweaks and a lot of conversation about it, but now that, the stakes get magnified in the playoffs, what's your level of confidence that the league's going to come through for you?
Yeah, who knows? I spent enough money on candy last night. I don't want to get fined for this one. So I'm not taking that bait.
Watch yourself, Ryan. Watch yourself.
Yeah. But, no, I think they'll do a good job. I think the refs on the field, for the most part, have always done a great job. Command Center, no one's going to be happy with it. That's just part of life in any aspect of it, right? So we're not too focused on that. We got to make sure we look at the replays upstairs and make sure we're challenging the right things. So, for me now, I'm pretty much keeping the red flag in, unless it's blatantly obvious in my mind until the fourth quarter.
With Ryan Dinwiddie, head coach of the Argos Redblacks tomorrow down at BMO Field. You mentioned Chad Kelly and quarterbacks coach, and to an extent addressing what happened last year, and he was kind of at the forefront to the point where you had to pull him. I mean, it wasn't a good game. I mean, and Chad had such a spectacular season. This year, though, has been a very different ride for him because of the way it started and the suspension, and it took him a while to kind of get back into the fold and get back into the swing of things. But he's looked very good down the stretch. You've been kind of praising his approach. Where's Chad Kelly's head at, and where's his game at going into this game tomorrow?
Yeah, going into this game, you look over the last month, I think he's kind of, got back to his old form. Didn't end the season the way we wanted to last year. It's unfortunate, but you can't, that's out of your control, right? It's in the past. So I think he's in a good spot. And, it's been a tough year for him. People have been dragging his name through the mud, and I know he made a mistake and things like that, but, the kid really can't even celebrate a victory. He just, has to take off and run to the locker room. So that's tough to watch. But I'm happy for him. And I hope he plays great. I think he will. And, he made a mistake, but he's a good dude. A lot of people take him the wrong way. He's doing the right things to try to, change that perspective of what people think about Chad.
Coach, when you look at, your team sort of from 30,000 feet, it does look like you've picked up some good momentum at the right time. You beat Ottawa a couple of weeks back. You beat Winnipeg late in the season. You beat Montreal late in the season. I mean, how much sort of momentum do you take from beating those top teams down the stretch?
Well, I think it brings you into the playoff football, right? And, we put ourselves in that position to have to win those games at the end to get to where we're at, right? We weren't going to catch Montreal, but we want to get a home playoff game for our fans and our organization and our ownership, right? So we had to win those games, right? And, a lot of pressure going in those games. So I feel like, guys kind of understand that. We've had some playoff games going into it before the playoffs to get where we need to be. Veteran leadership, our younger players kind of, see it from the leadership and they kind of fall in line. We got a great locker room. Now we got to play good football too. But the men in that room, they come to work every day, put on their hard hat, and I'm so proud of those guys.
you touched a little bit on the young players, and you see their evolution from game one to the end of the season until now. So, do you lean on those guys a little bit more and talk to them, or is that the role of the older players, or who kind of prepares those kind of relatively inexperienced guys for what the playoffs are like in the CFL?
Yeah, I think we got good veteran leadership that, kind of does that. Went and had a players only meeting, kind of let them know what it's going to take to win the championship, and then, starts with that meeting and then what's going on. So, I have my messages to them, as far as how we can win the game, what we can't do in playoff football. But I think those guys are excited. It's a long journey to get here. Once you get there, you got a 3-week stretch, and and that's exciting. And those guys are pretty fired up, and then the focus is there. You see the veteran leadership, but our younger guys, like, you don't have to hold their hand. They're men, and they kind of fit in this locker room, and they do good things off the field. And obviously on the field, otherwise they wouldn't be there.
Ryan Dinwiddie, head coach of the Argos Redblacks tomorrow. Looks like it's going to be a beautiful day. Sunny, about 10 degrees, give or take. I mean, that is pure football weather for early November. What are you hoping to see and hear out of the crowd tomorrow down at BMO?
Man, I hope the crowd's ready to go. We get a full crowd noise, right? They got to go on silent cadence now. Our D-line can get after them. It's going to be a rough day for the quarterback. So get as loud as you can. It's going to be hard on their offense, especially hard on their quarterback, and it's going to help our D-line out.
Hey, Coach, I was talking to a football family down in the States the other day, and we were just sort of going through some anecdotes about all the money that is floating around college football now with the NIL stuff, and these young teenage kids, essentially, they're becoming millionaires or pretty close to it in a lot of cases. I was just wondering how, have you noticed the effect of that yet in the CFL?
No, I haven't, but we talk about it as a staff quite a bit when we have college football games on when we're working late. And I'm just like, these kids are going to have millions of dollars in their pockets, the guys that we normally would get, like the quarterback that, was with the Browns for 2 years, let's say. Okay, he's not in there. Well, I don't know if he's going to come up. The kid's made $3 million already, right? So I don't know if it's going to affect our brand. We'll see. I think it might a little bit, but I think it's pretty crazy that they're paying these kids. I mean, these kids are making more in college than they would on the rookie contract in the NFL. That's pretty absurd, I feel. But, I mean, in my mind, me and Drew Tate were talking about the other day, and he's like, I got to call Iowa. I'm like, I got to call Boise State back. I mean, you guys didn't have an indoor till we won those bowl games,
Right. You need that retroactive money, man.
Yeah,
that's coming. There's guys that are going to go back to the boosters and say, now that it's legal, pay me for what I used to be back in the day. Come on. Where were you when I needed you? Well, it's going to be a fun one tomorrow, man. It's going to be a good ride. I mean, Ottawa, though, I'm sure there'll be Ottawa fans there, but I know it's going to be a packed house. Argo fans are going to show up, and good luck tomorrow. Good luck moving forward, and we appreciate you doing this. Thank you.
No, appreciate you guys. Have a good one.
You got it.
Thank you.
Ryan Dinwiddie, head coach of the Argos. I hadn't thought of that angle, like where, the CFL, the money keeps getting a little bit larger in the CFL, certainly than, year over year, and you see different quarterbacks in particular. Chad Kelly got a monster deal, and, we know what happened in BC this year.
Sure.
But the idea of guys at, not even like Power 5 schools who would still be making a lot of money now.
Oh, yeah.
That are kind of not moving in the direction towards the NFL, but generally would profile as a CFL player, yet making a fortune in college.
Well, yeah.
And if they got $4 or $5 million in the bank, they may feel like they're set for life. Like, why do I have to go up there and play for $100,000?
That's exactly what I was talking to this family about. They've got some young football playing kids, and they were basically saying, like, why would we go make $80,000 for the summer in Canada when we're millionaires?
Right.
Like, what do you think of that, Struddy?
Well, I'll say, guys, I might have a little different perspective, because now they do have money in the bank. They are not set, but they have a good nest egg to start with. So maybe they'd be like, you know what? The pressure isn't on as much. I don't have to make X amount a month or a year, whatever, to set my family. I can go up there and play the game because I like it, because I want to go up and play it for a couple of years, at least try it. So maybe that financial pressure wouldn't be there as it was or has been previous to the NIL contracts.
Yeah, I think there could be truth in that. I think now the other side of that coin is they come up and they're like, cut me then. I'm not doing what you want me to do.
Right.
Like the poor attitude.
Yeah.
Like
They're not desperate. They're not desperate.
I don't need to do it. What are you going to do?
Yeah,
Cut me?
true.
I'm making $80,000. I'll leave. I got $5 million in the bank.
And I'll tell you what, the other angle is just from the parental angle of caring about these kids. You're thinking, why put your body at risk?
Well,
you made a few million bucks
sport.
playing college sports. Like, you're not going to make the NFL. Why go up to the CFL and turn your body to dust for 10 years, making $80,000 or $100,000?
Yeah. It's a legitimate conversation. And, the NIL, again, a lot of the NIL money is for the really prominent players in the biggest schools.
You'd be surprised, man.
But I guess so. I guess every college has it.
Schools, they've got collectives, and they're rounding up money to give to these kids.
They're finding money.
Yeah.
And there's only so many spots in the NFL. Like, the CFL's waiting, and it is every CFL player was a really good college player.
Oh yeah,
like a really good college player.
Sure.
And some of them were like massively popular wherever they went to school, like big schools, and they just didn't have what it took to get to the NFL. But CFL was calling their name. All right, final hour coming up. Jack Armstrong will join us ahead of Lakers Raptors tonight, and Vince, his number going into the Raptors tomorrow. We'll catch up with Jack. We've got our best bet still to come, and Luke Wilson on Aaron Rodgers last night, first half versus the second half. I know where he's going with this, so we'll get into it with Luke in 10 minutes. We've got our picks. Al's brother will be a part of that as well. And a double shot for the Leafs this weekend. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app.